Hello?
Hello, is that Pattie?
Oh, yes, it is.
Hello, Pattie. This is Iain Lee from Talk Radio. I believe we're booked to talk now. Are you free?
Yes, I am, Ian. I just got a weird phone call, one of those ones, blah, 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 about absolute rubbish. So I thought this was them phoning back again.
Oh,
it's normally about, have you had an accident? One of those.
I don't know if
I hope they're not predicting.
I don't know if you have checked if you have PPI, Pattie, but I can look into that for you. Listen, it's great. We'll crack on. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. This exhibition that's going to be launched, George, Eric and me, tell me about it. What is it?
Well, basically, there's a museum in Norway that wanted to show my photographs and memorabilia and all sorts of things that I could offer them. And they had this exhibition running for about 3 months a couple of summers ago, and it was very successful. And the Beatles museum people heard about it and wanted the same thing, almost the same exhibition. So I've moved it from Norway to Liverpool, and there are photographs, fun photographs of mainly fun ones of George, and I have the Beatles, maybe all of them, that I took when we were in Rishikesh in India. We went there to meditate in 1968.
Now, this is listen. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so if I geek off too much, Pattie, you can tell me to back away a little bit. But
all right,
you introduced the Beatles to the Maharishi, didn't you?
Well, I didn't completely. What happened was that while they were on tour in Australia, I believe, I thought I wanted to do something else with my life, and then I saw a little advertisement to learn how to meditate, and I thought, that's for me. And so I followed it up, and in fact it was transcendental meditation, and I enrolled and learned how to meditate. So when the Beatles came back from Australia, I told George all about it, and he was very interested. And as luck would have it, I don't know, maybe a week or so went by, and then Paul phoned us to say there's someone called Maharishi who's come to London, and he's going to talk about meditation at the Hilton, I think, in London. So, of course, if one Beatle does something, we all have to do it.
Of course.
Because we are one family, It's just very cozy and comforting and all those wonderful words. And so we all went, and they really wanted to learn more about meditation. So we went up to Wales, and then while we were there, I think Maharishi, because their manager, Brian Epstein, died while we were in Wales.
Yeah.
And Maharishi could see how deeply upset everybody was. And this is why he suggested that perhaps we should go to India for about 2 months for more intensive courses on meditation.
What was India like? Because the stories I've read paint it as being pretty basic.
Well, yes, I mean, it's a third world country for a start. We're cozily living in a first world country here in England. But because it's a third world country, it doesn't mean that it's lacking in culture, love, religion, and honesty, and all these great old-fashioned values. It's a most beautiful country with an awful lot to offer. I'm absolutely mad about India. I love the food, and the people are charming and gentle and sweet. But it's, I can't criticize it, but, if you're really used to living a very sort of civilized life in the West, perhaps India's not really for you, because you see an awful lot of poverty.
Yeah.
And, but you have to get used to that. It's been like that for thousands of years.
And how did the Beatles, the four Beatles, find it? Because obviously they were, living the life of luxury.
Yes, but you know what? They were all young. We were all very young. We were like 22, 23, and hadn't really got into the concept of luxury. They were living the life that they wanted to live, and it was all fun, and we go to nightclubs and do whatever we want whenever we wanted, except if they were recording or on tour. And I think nobody minded. Nobody complained about living in a very sort of simple way. The beds were really like, as far as I remember from my school days, rather like school beds. The mattress is not very thick.
Yeah.
And, nobody minded, I think everybody realised we're going for, we're here to learn something.
Do you still meditate, Pattie? Do you still do TM?
Yes, I do, but I'm a little bit of a lazy person, I have to admit. So I don't, meaning that I don't do it every day.
Yeah. How did you kind of grew up all over the place, didn't you? You moved from place to place. How did you end up becoming a model in the swinging 60s?
Well, that was more by luck than any kind of design. I was working for Elizabeth Arden, and somebody came in and asked me if I'd ever thought about being a model. Well, I had to tell a little bit of a fib. I said no, even though I've been combing the pages of Vogue and all these glamorous magazines, and Jean Shrimpton was the star, and I said, oh my God, I'd love to be her, as all young girls do.
Yeah.
And this woman came in from one of the teen magazines and asked me if I'd like to be a model. And I said, yeah, of course, yes. So I went and she interviewed me, and she got someone to take photographs, and then introduced me to my future agent, who signed me on straight away.
And what kind of stuff were you doing? Guess fashion mags and adverts and things like that.
Yes, I was. Fashion mags, catalogue work,
yeah,
and advertising, and it was quite good. Looking back at my old appointments books now, I can't believe how much I was working.
Really, constantly.
Yeah.
And then you got a part in A Hard Day's Night.
Yes, now this is so funny, because my agent would send me for different interviews continually, because I'd be working, and then they'd say, go to this address, interview. So I went along, and I went in for the interview, and I recognised one of the guys, because I'd done a TV commercial with him before.
Yeah.
And his name was Dick Lester, but it seemed a little more important this time. There were more people staring at my portfolio. And then I went home that afternoon, and my agent phoned me early evening to say I'd got a part in the Beatles film.
Fantastic.
I said, how on earth did that happen? And they said, well, the last interview you went for, that's what it was for. And I panicked. I said, look, I've never wanted to be an actress. I'm far too shy. I can't handle this. And they said, don't worry. You just have to wear a school uniform and only say one word. And I thought, well, I'm sure I can do that.
Were you a Beatles fan?
Well, I like their music, I like their music, but I wasn't a sort of raving fan. I didn't go and see them in concert, but I loved what they were doing.
Mm.
And so, it was a very exciting time, thinking that I was going to. However, I must tell you, it was so embarrassing, I thought, to meet these people who are clearly famous and were going to be more famous, and I have to wear a wretched school uniform. Oh, no, it's so unattractive.
But what was the attraction between you and if I ask anything that's too impersonal, just tell me to shut up. What was the attraction between you and George instant? Was there a certain magic, or did it take a bit of time?
There was an instant magic. I mean, he was deliciously looking. He was so good looking. Had the most beautiful brown eyes. And both of us, being rather shy, we were kind of attracted to each other. And we sat next to each other at lunch on the train while they were filming. And, we were just I thought he was unbelievably funny and amusing, because I'd never met anyone from Liverpool before. And, of course, the language in Liverpool is so different from the language that we know. They have so many different sayings, and I just wasn't sure what was going on. It was all rather giddy making, actually.
Yeah.
And he was so adorable and sweet and funny. I mean, what a great combo.
Yeah. And then you became part of the whole Beatles machinery. That must have been an incredible experience to see, a worldwide phenomenon. And obviously a lot of this is recorded in these photographs at the exhibition. But to be in the middle of a worldwide phenomenon as it was happening.
Yeah, but look, of course, I didn't realise. I thought just people in England, knew of them.
Yeah.
Obviously people in America and wherever they toured. But I had and none of us, and they didn't either, have any concept of quite how enormous they were becoming and would become later on. And I think with time they've become even more iconic.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of the photos now, and they really are, they're family photos, aren't they? They're snaps. There's a great picture of George topless on a bed with a pair of sunglasses by him. These are very intimate, aren't they?
Yeah, do you know what? Before I started showing my photographs, I was really slightly unsure about if I'm revealing too much, if, these are too personal. And I showed them to a few friends, and they said, no, they're lovely, you must share them. And it's the only way I can see it. I can't now go back and say, oh, my God, they're too personal, because, I think that they're lovely. And I would never show a photograph of somebody who wasn't looking good, or the lighting was horrible, or they were in a hideous position. I'd never do that.
Oh, they're absolutely beautiful. And it is, the intimacy of a family snap, not the posed photos. You have been at several kind of pivotal rock moments. You were at the famous All You Need Is Love performance, weren't you?
Yes.
What the hell was that like? Was it as much fun as it looks?
It was huge fun.
Yeah, I bet.
There was enormous electricity in the air. It was just like so exciting. And also we were told that while it was being filmed, it would be shown around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was mind-blowing.
It was like the first big satellite link up around the world, wasn't it?
It was. Absolutely it was. And so to be the first was, even more exciting. And to think we would be there as well. It was fabulous. Absolutely exciting and wonderful.
And also, have I got this right? You were there the first time that George and John Lennon took LSD.
Well, yes.
And it wasn't particularly... It was done... Wasn't it the dentist that kind of spiked you all or something?
Well, yes. I mean, we thought he was quite charming because he invited us for dinner.
Yeah.
And so John was with his first wife, Cynthia, and George and I. So we went along, and we thought, well, might as well do that, have dinner with him, and then afterwards we'd go and see Klaus Bormann playing in some club in Soho.
Yeah.
So our evening was planned. So we went along and, had some drinks and dinner and wine, and it was all rather nice. And then we said, well, we've got to go now. I'm so sorry, but we're going to see Klaus. And they said, but you haven't had your coffee. So, we had to sit down again, drink our coffee, and then we got up and went into the sitting room, and just chatting, and then John said, we've really got to go, we don't want to miss them. And the dentist said, you can't possibly leave yet. John said, why? And he said, because you've just had LSD.
Uh-oh.
John freaked out because he understood what it was.
Yeah.
George and I and Cynthia, no idea, never heard of it, didn't know why John was getting so angry. And anyway, that was it. John said, right, we're definitely leaving. So we left and we got into our little Mini. And I can't tell you what it's like. I don't know if you've ever taken a drug as strong as that, but you become so enormous in your mind.
Yeah.
And so 4 people kept growing and growing in this tiny little Mini. It was, it was surreal, and it was hallucinogenic. So it was very scary, and in fact incredibly irresponsible of the dentist.
Oh, of course, yeah.
To have given us this, and knowing George was driving too. But no, it was the most horrific experience.
It does sound horrific, and yes, if you're having a trip and it's not a controlled situation, of course it can be terrifying. But that evening did shape rock music for years to come, didn't it? Are you aware, because you were there and all these different experiences, are you aware of just how important those experiences were?
No, because for us it was just our life. This is what we were doing. We had very little idea that anybody else knew how our life was going. We thought this is, nobody knows about your life, really, do they?
No.
You see, so, imagine if you now find out everybody knows exactly what you were doing. It's rather odd.
It must be, because and I would imagine that you get a contact or accosted by fans all the time who know everything you were doing on January the 31st of 1967, and that they February the 6th 1973, they know exactly where you were.
Yes, I know. It's very, very Very odd indeed. It blows me away, actually, and I don't really like it.
Yeah,
but then when I speak to, I've been speaking to this amazing forensic historian who's writing 3 of the most enormous volumes.
Oh, is this Mark Lewison?
Yes.
Yes.
To me, he is a forensic historian. Yeah. His detail is fascinating, and so listening to him tell me about my life is actually fantastic.
His first book, if I got this right, was 900 pages, and it only went up to 1963.
Yeah,
that's in depth.
Well, that's why I call him a forensic historian.
You recently did a show as well with Henry Diltz, the famous rock photographer, who I've kind of had dealings with. But boy, oh boy, isn't he an absolute gentleman? What was that like working with him?
Oh, he is the most adorable man ever. Absolutely adorable. And he photographs everything and anything. So we can be walking down the street, Henry and I, and, where's Henry? Miles back, blocks back. He's found some little thing in a window or somewhere that he's photographing.
Yeah.
He is so much fun, so talented, and he's great fun to be with. And we did a lovely tour of 5 different states of America in March, towards the end of March. And we did 13 shows where Henry first and then me would stand up in front of an audience and we'd have our photographs large on a big screen.
Yeah.
And we would discuss them and, tell funny tales about what was happening at the time. It was really fun to do it with Henry.
I'm going to let you go in a second, Pattie. Just one more thing. You are you were a muse. You may still be a muse, but you certainly were a muse and inspired, 3 of the greatest love songs, at least, of all time. Layla, Wonderful Tonight and Something. Do you kind of show off about that? Do you feel a weight of responsibility around that? Or do you just think, that some men that were in love with you wrote some really nice songs about you?
Yes, I think the latter, because... there's no point in me getting hung up about, it's being a muse. I mean, so who am I now? Only amusing. But, no, I mean, how lucky I am. How lucky I am that, those guys wrote beautiful songs.
Pattie, listen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing these photos, because as a Beatles fan and a fan of, of rock music and Clapton, of course, it's really nice to see, this kind of personal side of them that quite often you don't get to see. So thank you for that. My pleasure. I hope that everybody else enjoys seeing the photographs as well. I'm sure they will. Pattie, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real thrill to talk to you. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.